Good morning. Good morning. How are you today? Let me take myself out of my own ear. When I heard that, I was like, okay, uh, I sound funny to myself. So saying good morning. How are you today? Funny, funny. Well, good morning. How everybody's doing? This is another session of World of Akibaland Roots and Culture African History class. Another section of World of Akibaland Roots and Culture African History class. Glad to have y'all here. Hope y'all are enjoying your African History Month. Yes, I hope you are enjoying your African History Month or your Black History Month. That's what it is. Black History, African History. It's one and the same. Okay. One dates us when we got to this country, the other one dates us all the way back from our creation as being a manifestation of a divine thought, which is coming straight from God. And so we hope you are enjoying your celebration. This is we got a special thing going for Black History Month tomorrow. So I'm going to be advertising that right after this. You'll see that posting. So y'all be on the lookout. Hopefully the elders of our community show up and show out with some great stories, some great interactions, some great energy to feed you. You know, and that's because we eating. We spiritually eating. We spiritually eat every day on World of Akibla. And it's not just the knowledge of thought, but it's also the that spirit. And so we always feed, and we hoping that the elders of our community show up tomorrow and do nothing but pour in. Why? Because we are always focused on the rise of the African. This is a part of who we are, and this is a part of what we do. I am, which is the Moses Code. Y'all know this. The most two powerful words in the dictionary. I am. What that comes after that enters you enter into your spiritual zone. I am what? Manifested. I am the seeker. I'm the molecular. I'm not the expert, but I am the seeker just like you. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And as I seek it out and I learn it, I share it with you. This particular class of the African, the World of Akibaland Roots and Culture African History class is a community charge experience. Meaning that I was asked within my community because I do have the technology to be able to do this to actually teach the class. And so teaching the class said I had to go deeper into learning the history, even in more in depth. And so I said, okay, I could do that. And hence we're here. So what we will always like you to do is while we are doing this, we always want you, because we have tons and tons of classes, to support all of our efforts. So if you're watching us on Facebook, please hit like, hit comment, make a comment. Good, bad, or ugly, good or good. I'd rather that. Comment and share it. Let somebody else know who is also, you know, wanting their kids to learn African history, or we trying to develop you're trying to develop a deeper understanding of who you are and whose you are. World of Akibaland is a great place for all ages. So because we have programs for all ages, right? It's just not the kids. However, you have World of Keyblade Inspirational Sunday. I hear, a lot of adults will hit me up, as well as, we got of course, it's for the kids starting at age 8. But if you got somebody younger than 8, let me know, and I'll make sure that I can be as happy as all outdoors and break it down to the simplest molecule so they'll get it too. All right, and have those discussions. And if you would like to join in to have a greater discussion where your kids can ask questions and you can ask questions, yes, just send me an email and we can make that happen by sending me join our Zoom audience. Contact us at info@worldofakibaland.org. You see it right there. And even in African history class, as we continue to grow, we'll be starting to ask the anybody, all ages, to come into the Zoom, listen to the Discord, have the dialogue, answer the question. So y'all be sitting over there while I'll be sitting here, and then I'll be doing a discourse, and then we'll come back to this screen. We're gonna show that tomorrow. Y'all be ready. It's coming tomorrow. It's told you I was coming real quick. But it's coming tomorrow. And so also on Tuesdays, we have the African Speaks, which is the dialogue on the African Speaks. Um, Comes at 7 p.m. And that's an older conversation. However, in that conversation, if parents would like to, break it down to a younger discussion, that's possible. But we say 14 and up for the African Speaks. The Afro Stream is everybody. There's global news from a Pan African perspective. It's everybody. Uh, Now, African spirituality is everybody. Again, we're not only um, building the life of black youth to grow and watch them develop and take over the planet, to develop our future black leaders, but we're also a black parenting reference. So if you need any source of anything, you come to the world of Akibaland, we will make sure that we do our best to provide it for you. Now, I would like you to, always remember that again, voluntold. I was voluntold, or community charged to get this done. And so we're doing it. So I would always like to let you know and remind you that the some of the research comes from what we call the People's Library. The People's Library was created from a brother in our community by the name of Walamo Latunji. And it's a hard drive of close to 6 terabytes of data. He said that the new hard drive now is about 12 terabytes, and I'm preparing to go get that 12 terabytes and upgrade. All right, today's lesson, if you look at this page, today's lesson is based off of Egypt. And so what I did is to show you how much data on the hard drive is on Egypt alone. Right. And so, as we continue to grow in our African history classes, I will continue to show you how much data is out here on the People's Library for us to be able to research for ourselves, read it for ourselves, and let it marinate in our thought processes, and discuss later. So, if you're interested in the People's Library, please let me know. I do have to get some information out to some people so that they can get these hard drives and some of these videos. Right? Some of the videos I use are not. We are also. I'll let you know. Some of the videos I use on uh, Roots and Culture come from YouTube. And so there is one brother that I'm always looking at. His name is that site is the Home Team, and that brother's on it. He has a deep production team behind him, um, and he's doing his thing. So please, if you can, go take a look at it. If you're researching anything in particular, take a look at it. If you don't, reach out to get the People's Library so you have the data and the research papers and the videos and the articles that, and my niece used it. She wanted to learn about the Moors. I sent her paper after paper after paper on the Moors. Now, of course, the higher you grow in your education, the more you're going to be able to need to explain if you're studying Africana studies. This is a good thing. And so, or if you're a teacher, or, you're another youth program and you need a foundation to begin to create African history class in your community one on one, and you don't have the technology to live stream the way we do, yes, it is something for you. There is no cost. You pay for we ask for a donation, and you pay for your own hard drive, and we'll just transfer the data. That's it. How can you beat that? 6 terabytes of African history? You can't beat that. So we look at it. So now what we also want to do is also understand why we're here. And somebody, I said Afrocation one time, and we had somebody send me a text message that said Afrocation with 2 question marks. I said, yeah, I made the word up. I made the word up. It's African in education. Afrocation is an education from an African perspective, right? And so there was a book. Let me see if it's around me. Yep, 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 yep. Is this one of the? Let me see. Woo! It's a book written by a old mentor of mine who dropped the ball on our children. Okay, I've been reading that book. And it was the concept of where I picked up the understanding of an Afrocation, which is an education to a black child has two folds. The education is one, to help a child understand how to maneuver in a society based off of systematic oppression. So the book again, right? Good book. Systematic oppression. Two, the other reason for an education or a education from an African perspective is to lead a child towards self-determination. So even as an adult, this is why it's all ages. It's if you grew up without an education that had with an African perspective, this is an opportunity to re-educate yourself from what was given to you. Recondition your mind to think in a different way. From a pan-African perspective, from an African perspective, as though Africa is the center of the world, because it is. But they don't teach you that. And that is something that we, Afrocation, right? And so in this Afrocation, and we're talking about African civilization. So talking about African civilization, we looked at the things that create a society. Now, now again, as we begin, because we said that we're moving from Kemet, not Kemet, we're moving from Kush. Okay, I'm moving faster than I'm in terms of my presentation. We've been studying Kush, which was the really the oldest, older civilization than Egypt, because they said Egypt was nothing but migrants from Kush. Egypt was able to develop a governing state before Kush. However, Kush existed before Egypt, and then they shared some of the same similarities. And so we talked about the what creates a culture. And so these are the attributes of a particular culture. And so that's how you balance it. Now, in a culture, you understand who you are and whose you are in the Creator's eyes, in the sight of God. It's important. African history will give you self-realization, self-actualization, and it'll give you a sense of purpose and determination, leading you towards self-determination. And so understanding these levels, it's not just listening to the history, but understanding the different components that make up a culture, make a people a people. How are we becoming so great as a people? Well, let's look at the cultures. Let's look at our heritage. Look at everything that we contributed to society. Now, there was a video, and I'm gonna go back and look at this video where, and I think B.O.B. Hip Hop B.O.B. created a video where he said, well, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. I'm gonna go back and find that video, and I'm gonna use the video next week. It just came up on one of my Facebook feeds real quick, and I said, but we created culture that everybody mimicked, everybody duplicated, everybody copied, and they made changes to it. But our culture was the dominant culture. African culture. And then they taught us about Egypt, right? And I said, well, I didn't want to study Egypt first. Let's look at Kush and see what let's look at Kush first. Why? Because Kush was the older civilization. So we say, civilization. Yes, they were modernized according to their time. What? Like they say, you got first world, second world, and third world societies in terms of economics. America is a first world society, and then they talk about third world societies where you live in the third world. Whew, it's just levels of poverty that we don't understand over here, right? So all the civilizations in Africa before the invasion of European society was considered first world. Let's get that. Everything before European society, before European invasion, Africa was considered first world. If you're dealing with the economic status and the level of civilization and the modernized experience, they were complete. Now, one of the things that we talk about here that wasn't in the good curriculum, right? Wasn't in the good curriculum, which came from let me get my clicks right, which came from the People's Library, right? So you got to get the People's Library. You gotta get the People's Library. But was the fact that the gift that God gave to the African continent and the people itself that allowed them to create that communal environment, meaning communal. You take as you give as you are able and take as you have need. A balance with humanity. And in Egypt, they call it the Mayat. Living in harmony. Man in harmony with man, man in harmony with nature, man in harmony with God, spirits, entity, right? Man in harmony with everything. So, in that sense of spirituality, what did people create? And so, in this, one of the things when you start looking at Egypt, Egypt looked upon the Nile, and they said it. They will say, and when you see the video today, you'll hear it. The Nile was the gift of God because it gave them vegetation, it gave them food, fertile land, it gave them everything. Now, when you look at the areas of the Nile, now it's burdened land. But back then, it was just flourishing, all green. All green. So you might look at things from Egypt and you see the pyramids and you like, oh, how could they live in the desert? And at one point, I was thinking the same thing. One point I was thinking the same thing. How could they live in the desert? It wasn't desert land. That's the thing. It wasn't desert land. And so that's something that we want to keep in. So now, as we look into understanding the life of Egypt, the Egyptian life. So we're going to study all areas of Egyptian life. Right, so we talked about Cush versus Egypt, and how Egypt was the migration of Cush moving up. We went intense inside of Egypt. This is a quick recap. We dealt with the Egyptian developing as a society. I mean, Cush developing as a society. We talked about the Cushites or the Nubian kings. We talked about the Nubian queens. Yes, it was the fact that they have a governing body that was matriarchal, meaning that women was allowed to hold office. There were women pharaohs, hundreds of them, women pharaohs. What? Now you sitting down and we applauding the fact that you have the first female vice president, and she's a sister. Oh, wait. There were women pharaohs, meaning there should be a woman president. And of course, I love to see a black female president, because that's got to happen if she is connected to the soul of her people. That would change. That would be, yeah, it'd be phenomenal. But she don't. She would realize, just like Obama, Obama being the president of the United States, not the president of black people. But there will hopefully be certain spiritual elements that would come across that would be different, and we would hope that would be the process. Doing some technical looks at here. Okay, are we doing okay? Yeah, it looks like we doing okay. Is it shoddy? Yeah, okay, we doing good. All right, just technical support. Sorry, appreciate it. Patience. All right, so now in the studying the Egyptian uh, studying Egyptian history, what I found out, Egyptian history lasted 30,000 years or so. 30,000 years. Can you imagine a society that lasts 30,000 years? And you at the top of everything. And this is why Egypt, was such a dominant place, because how long it lasted. 30,000 years. Now America's only been here 400. America, not the land itself, but America. We've been in America for 400 years as black folk. Egypt was number one, right? Number one, 30,000 years. Kush lasted longer than Egypt, because Kush didn't fall until after Egypt fell. 30,000 years. I can't even imagine that. And so that's 30,000 years of African history and African influence on the planet. 30. And I'm going to keep saying it because it bogs my mind. I can't get it. And so we're going to take our time to go through the old dynasty of ancient Egypt, the middle dynasty, and then the last dynasty of ancient Egypt. And so we're going to go through those and take a look at it and look at their influences. Now, one of the things that we have in this state, which is a rare situation. Normally, after African history class, we have African spirituality class. Why? Because I said you can't teach people about their history if they don't understand the spirit in which the people existed and created wonderful things. It doesn't make sense to me. Why are we gonna learn African history? We don't learn African spirituality. And it's not African spirituality as a minute. It's just in general. So we get a general idea of how African people see themselves in the sight of the Creator, right? And how they interact. How could they live 30,000 years with a communal environment? Communal meaning that, yeah, there was no deep fighting and genocidal behaviors until the infiltration of European society. We talked about that in the previous uh, Kush studies, and we might be talking about it again because when you start studying Egypt, you have to see Kush. You just have to, right? And we'll talk about how everybody around them wanted to attack and take from these particular areas. Why? Because of the Nile and the resources that it produced. And so we'll get there. However, we're in a rare situation where today we can talk about spirituality. Woo, in African history class and in African spirituality class. Because I sat down and said, when I was doing this, I said, wow, now the spiritual influence that Egypt had across the world is heavy. And sometimes we don't even know when we looking at the influence of Africa and what it means. That's important. Even when we talked about last week in African, when we talked about African spirituality in that class, we talked about colors and what colors represent and what they meant in African spirituality. Now, I sat down and said, this might be a good day to introduce, before we go into the life of Egypt, the spirit of a people, which dealt with the issues of mythology. What? Yeah, you have this African faith of Egypt is deeply mythical. Like it's like reading Greek mythology. It's deeply mythical and very, very interesting. However, what I want you to know when looking at Egyptian mythology, understand every religion has sacred mythological stories. Every religion. Christianity has it, Buddhism has it, Islam has it. They all have mythological stories because you weren't dated. There was nobody there to date the creation of the world. They say, well, God gave it to you through inspiration. Okay, so then God gave it to Egypt too. And Egypt lasted 30,000 years with the understanding of who they were in spirit, right? I know who we are in God. We live from a sense of harmony and peace. 30,000 years. And so we're going to embark on, for the sake of entertainment, embark on taking a look at the deities of Egyptian religion, Egyptian spirituality. And if you can see it, the top one is Ra. Now some say his name is Amen Ra. And they say in Christianity, when we say Amen, it's a in term of acknowledging Amen Ra. Ain't that something? Which is the high God. Who knew? Now I'm not the expert. I'm just a Malakio. So, this is not going to be a deep dive into Egyptian spirituality because there are books for that, and we may take a look at those books in African spirituality class at one point in time and deep dive at that point. But what I want you to do is for those who are advanced thinkers, right? So we want to have if you're youth minded, here to get an education, you're going to understand uh, Egyptian mythology. As you grow up in school, they're going to teach you all about Greek mythology, mythology that doesn't even belong to your culture as Africans, right? Because every culture has mythology. There's even Chinese mythology, Indian mythology, Hindus, right? Everybody has mythology to explain the things that man can't explain. And if you will, we said it in African spirituality class, and I think here as well, when we talk about being anthropomorphic, meaning giving things the um, the definition of human character that doesn't have human character. When people say I'm in the hands of God, God has no hands, but that's how men sees it. And so how you see yourself in God will determine the level of society you produce. Mm. Now, we're going to look at this Greek mythology. We're going to continue because this is a pretty good length. And I want you, for those to look at those with advanced thinking, I want you to look for symbols that we still use. Look for references in spirituality that we still use. Look for myths that are used today. And then there are comparisons. You those super thinkers, my theologian scholars, who can compare Egyptian spirituality and Christian spirituality and see commonalities, right? Now, when you see the dollar bill, watch when the video starts. I'm going to start it right now so that you can see that modernized European society steals, because they don't want to tell you this, from ancient Egyptians. Or forget ancient Egyptians, from African culture. Period. Period. And so I got to set this up so when it flows, I can stop it and we can go and we can have a discussion and we can see, as well as being entertained on mythology, Egyptian mythology.
In the beginning there was nothing. The universe consisted of a great chaotic ocean, and Ben emerged amid this primal chaos.
Stop right there. If you got a dollar bill, if you have a dollar bill, or let me see if I got, no, I know I don't keep cash in my pocket. I got a card. I stopped keeping cash. Pull a dollar out and ask somebody for a dollar and look for that pyramid. Right. Now, according to Egyptian mythology, God manifests himself out of nothingness. That's that pyramid coming up out of nothingness. He manifests himself out of a primordial abyss. That's what they said. Coming up. And so now you understand what was the issue of creating pyramids, to signify God manifesting himself from nothing, coming up from nothing. And so they said that was sacred. That pyramid structure was completely sacred. Now, look at Washington. Now, I'm not the one, again, I'm not the expert. This is things that's flowing out of my brain that's been in there. You know, you got data in there that you may never use. I'm using it today. The Washington Monument is shaped like that, and it's the highest building in Washington. Why? Because they believe that if that pyramid shape draws energy, spiritual energy from the universe, there is no building in Washington higher than the Washington Monument for areas, because they wanted to make sure that that monument draws more spiritual energy from the universe. Look it up. They're not going to tell you, may not tell you that, but look it up. There's a orders. You can't fly. Can't build past it. No. Ain't that something? And so now you understand why the pyramids are sacred. God manifesting himself. Anytime you see a pyramid at this particular time in your life, understand African spirituality. It's the first structure that you'll see. and almost anywhere that you go, um, sacred. And it is the concept or the symbol of God manifesting himself out of nothing. Wow. See the all-seeing eye of the creator? Wow. Let's go.
Benben was a huge pyramidal mound. There was a lotus flower with Benben, and this, when it blossomed, brought the god Ra to the world, and light came with him. Ra by himself generated the first generations of gods. Shu, the god of the air, and Tefnut, the goddess of rain, were born. The universe was enwrapped by a vast mass of primordial waters. Shu and Tefnut plunged into the waters to explore its immensity. Ra felt afflicted after realizing that their children were taking a long time to return, and fearing never seeing them again, he sent his best messenger to find them. Shu and Tefnut returned safe and sound, and Ra's joy was so immense that human beings were born from his tears. After returning, their children generated in turn Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky, and thus the sky and the earth were created. The great god Ra sovereignly ruled the universe power, and he was awarded the title of the first pharaoh. The god gifted Egypt with several sacred animals like the ox and the lion, but his greatest offering was the creation of the Nile River.
What? His greatest creation. Hold up. I gotta turn me down in my ears. Hello. His greatest creation in African spirituality, according to Egyptian mythology, was the Nile River. Why? Because Egypt could not exist or even develop or grow without it. Now, they don't know how the world came about. In African culture and African spirituality, we don't know. Even in Christianity, we don't know. So when we hearing it, for us in my community, it's called sacred mythological writings. Now you talk to a traditional Christian, they might hunt you down and get mad at you, beat you up, calling anything in the Bible mythical. What? How dare you? Yeah, well, and then we also talk about in the difference between Egypt, Egyptian mythological stories, and Christian. There's only one God, but in Egypt, there's a God, and He created deities to help create the world. Again, how did Egypt develop their spiritual awareness of who they are to the point where they're one of the most powerful civilizations existing? Let's continue. Again, this is Egyptian mythology. When we get into the history of Egypt, understand how much they connected to the what we call a religious universe. And that's exactly what they had. But this is how the concepts that they had to develop a religious universe. When you look at Kush and we talk about Kush and the things that we learned about Kush, Kush believed that they lived in a religious universe. And anytime Egypt fell off of that focus of the religious universe, Kush would then go to war for the sake of fine-tuning Egypt back into its focus on the Mayat, which is the balance of earth, the balance of the relationship that men has with each other, the men have with nature, the men has with God. That's the Mayat. Let's continue.
Around its shores, men would edify a civilization glorifying the gods. But Ra had a premonition that his grandchildren would give birth to a new generation of gods who would put an end to his reign. And so the great god forbade the sky and the earth to have any offspring whatsoever. But Nut and Geb disobeyed.
Now, I hope y'all been watching African spirituality, because we talked about certain African cultures who believed that the sky was a deity and earth was a deity. And they're not Egyptian. They just tribes in Africa. Right? So again, African spirituality had a universal experience or feel to it across the continent, and it influenced all other places. Let's keep watching.
And gave rise to a powerful offspring. Isis, Neph, Seth, and Osiris. They dethroned Ra, and Osiris started to reign over the world. But the new god's throne was not safe, because his brother Seth was eager to take all power for himself.
Wait, I'm dropping this one for my super deep thinkers and theologians. Brothers at war. Again, people will say that the scriptures of the Bible were not unique. The mythological stories placed in the Bible to explain the unexplainable was not unique. Let me see if I can clear this picture up real quick. There we go. You have brothers fighting for a kingdom. I think that's called was it is Ham, Cain and Abel, right? And then you got the cursed seed of Ham, right? Y'all got to be careful what y'all call absolute law or truth versus mythological figures, right? In the Bible that said, Adam had two sons. So if you have two sons, how you populate the world? Cain and Abel, how you populate the world? You can't populate the world if you got Adam, Eve, and two sons. That's four people on the planet. One woman, because these are two brothers, and then brother killed himself. So there was three. Are y'all understanding the value of mythological stories in religion to explain things that we just can't explain? Because then after Cain slew Abel, God cast him out from the family and said, everybody else is going to be against you. And I'm like, when I'm reading that, I'm like, well, where did everybody else come from? If it was just Adam and Eve and they had two sons, that don't make any sense to me. Deep, deep mythology. But the question is, as you watch it, ask yourself, what did black people create behind the myth of trying to understand who they are in such a religious world? When we get into Egyptian life and the vastness of it, the life of it, and what they were able to do in harmony of it, then you ask yourself, what do you do and what do we create from our faith? Our faith. Those who call themselves Christians, those who call themselves Muslims, those who call themselves Hindus. What are we creating? Let's continue.
And so the saga of Egyptian gods began. After deposing the god Ra, the deity who gave origin to the Egyptian world, Osiris became the new god of the universe. The new supreme god took the goddess Isis as his wife and started a reign of great prosperity. Osiris brought civilization to men, who, until that point, lived quite primitively. The god taught them agriculture, weaving, and how to make bread. Besides that, he decreed the use of laws, which would give order to chaos. The Egyptians...
The laws, and there is the Kemetic laws that I had a book and I didn't completely read it in my mind. It's just because that hit me just now. There are laws that they have where you're living a particular way. They said that he brought order to man. Now, in African spirituality, when we're talking about Egyptian culture, right, and separate, that's this is a rare opportunity that we get to see. Instead of just reading the history and learning about what they did, we get to actually see what they were able to create with the spirituality that they have. And so with us, what are we creating? We can't go out in the world and just be individuals, because that's not what our spirituality is. Individuals doing great things for individuals. No, it's about empires. And this is the concept where we get kingdom building. What kingdom are we building? Ooh, man, it's a whole lot going on here. We gonna be, we might as well go straight to a Keeberland inspirational Sunday with this one. But let us continue. But understand that they use spirituality to create harmony in the midst of chaos. So along the Nile, when you have tons of people learning how to eat, feed, and take care of each other, they came up with a spiritual system that brought them together in harmony to create civilization. Wow. So as black people, we're going to create, and we're going to measure this. We're trying to create or kingdom build. What parts of our faith pulls us together to help us kingdom build, and what part of our Christian faith helps destroy us? And that's one of the things that my community does great. We pick apart in that Christianity that has been Europeanized, that is destroying us, and pull something together that allows us to kingdom build. Well, I wish I had a classroom right now to have that conversation. Let's continue.
Civilization began to flourish under the reign of the benevolent god Osiris. However, Osiris had a powerful and ambitious brother, Seth. His kingdom stood in the arid desert around Egypt, and so he was jealous of his brother, who had a fertile and prosperous kingdom. Osiris had an affair with Nephthys, Set's wife, and Anubis, the god of the dead, emerged from this union. Angered by his brother's betrayal, Set prepared his revenge. The god of the dry lands and personification of evil invited Osiris for a great feast in his honor. During the feast, Seth gifted the guests with a beautiful coffin and said he would offer it to the one who fit into it perfectly. Osiris decided to try it, and, immediately after settling in, Seth closed the coffin, trapping the god. The evil god threw the coffin into the Nile, drowning the supreme god. Isis wept profoundly after losing her beloved husband, and these tears poured into the Nile River, giving rise to its traditional floods.
Now, you have them explaining the floods of the Nile. Man at that time cannot explain what is happening in nature. So they come up with sacred stories to explain what's happening in nature. So, of course, throughout the years, they're saying, Osiris is crying. So the floods are coming. And so that doesn't mean a flood is something negative. No. She's a deity of our spiritual existence. And if she's crying, it floods. And guess what? When the Nile floods, it leaves fertile land. We talked about that when we studied Cush. So this is why they didn't look at disasters, natural disasters, as something negative, because they connected everything to a spiritual deity. This is why certain faiths have more deities than others, right? We have one God, but we got spirits, good and positive, right? So we have a God and spirits, then we have man. God, spirits, and ancestors, then man. That's probably if I don't know what it is over this one God, but in here is one God with small, little, tiny demigods. Ra is still just one high God. You'll see the hierarchy. Do I have the hierarchy? Yeah, I showed the hierarchy already. Let me see if I can drop it again. Boom. There's still one God. But we have all the little ones under him. Understand the connection. Not saying that, and people are always arguing Christianity is those who are trying to not get you to be a part of the Christian faith. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're not letting it go because we can hold on to the African foundation in which it stands on. So if you want to go there, that's fine. Why? Because it all came from us. If you want to go there and serve, that's fine, because it all came from us. What kingdom do you create with it is the question. Because Egypt created a great one. Let's continue.
The goddess and her sister Nephthys looked for Osiris's body, and Isis, after finding it, tried to hide it. But Seth spotted it nonetheless and smashed it into 42 pieces, spreading them throughout Egypt. Isis, with Anubis's help, managed to recover the pieces, and, under the guidance of the god of the dead, she mummified Osiris. Using her divine powers, the goddess was able to resurrect her love, But Osiris would now reign over the world of the dead.
Wait. Did we just have a resurrection? Y'all listen. Did we just have a resurrection? And when he was resurrected, did he not go down to the depths of the underworld? Come on, man. Y'all better see this African tale. Y'all better feel this African tale. Hear this African tale. Come on. You got to know that they're pulling stories from our history. And so they did that, and we're connected. You can't disconnect. And I get it. But we got to understand the power of who we are in it, how we began to explain how man exists in this world. Wow. Let's continue. African history class. Now, again, there may be a time in African spirituality class where we go a little deeper, but it's telling it all. Let's go.
After coming back to life, Osiris had a son with Isis. His name was Horus, and he swore he would defeat Seth, the usurper of the throne that was his by right. Seth, the god of destruction, had murdered Osiris, the god who reigned supreme in Egyptian mythology. Set took the throne from his brother for himself and unleashed his reign of terror. Nevertheless, Osiris had generated an heir together with the goddess Isis. His name was Horus. This was...
Now, some say the birth of Jesus is a mimic of the birth of Horus. The Immaculate Conception. How does she have a baby with a dead man? There's no life. Or he's a zombie. We call it, right? No disrespect to African spirituality because it's powerful. What they were able to create with how they saw themselves in life was powerful. The issue is, again, with the faith that we have as Christians, what do we create with how we define ourselves in God? Let's continue.
The falcon god, whose prophecy said that he would reign over the skies and would bring the light back to Egypt, ending the darkness brought by Seth. Horus, already an adult, decided to claim his throne, which had been usurped by his uncle. The contention is judged by the gods, while the court, presided over by the sun god Ra, decided who would be worthy to sit on the throne. A series of clashes between Set and Horus had begun.
Again, God is the final judge. Wow, which is Ra, according to them. But there's only one final judge. Wow. Continue.
Set had Ra's sympathy, since the usurper protected the sun god from the serpent Apophis, while the latter crossed the skies. Set proposed a challenge to Horus. Both would have to transform themselves into hippos, and should be submerged for 3 months. Horus relied on his mother, the goddess Isis, to take advantage of Set's vulnerability to kill him. The goddess felt sympathy for Set and could not kill him. This betrayal enraged Horus, who then attacked his mother, cutting off her head. The god Thoth, the deity of knowledge, saved the goddess, replacing the severed head with a cow's head. The clash between Set and Horus continued for many years. When fighting in the desert, Set managed to pluck Horus's eyes. Due to Hathor's help, the goddess of love, Horus had his vision restored. The court of gods demanded a reconciliation between Set and Horus. The evil god, pretending to be benevolent, invited Horus for a feast in his palace. During the night, Set tried to abuse his nephew, making him unworthy to the throne. However, Horus managed to defend himself and prevented the god's poisonous seed. Horus decided to take revenge and, with the help of the goddess Isis, the god placed his divine seed in lettuce leaves, which were then offered to Set by the goddess Isis. The god of barren deserts ate the contaminated lettuce. Poisoned, Set started to deteriorate in front of everyone, and a golden disc emerged in his forehead. Thoth grabbed the bright disc and ingrained it in her own head. Seth had been humiliated, and that was when, after 80 years, the court granted Horus the throne that was his by right. Isis couldn't be more proud to see her son, with Osiris assuming the father's throne. Set's fate was to travel with Ra, the sun god of the skies, and his enraged screams could be heard with thunder. And so, Horus's reign over Egypt began, and all the pharaohs who one day reigned over Egypt were among his descendants.
Before we continue, we got a little bit of time left, and so I don't know if I'll stop there. However, and we might be able to stop there, right? So because we can get ready for African spirituality class. It said every pharaoh after that was a descendant of a spiritual deity. So you knew when you came into power, there was a lineage that you had that linked you to a godly line. The same thing where they had to line Jesus' lineages up with David. Right? You got to be lined with David, the best king that we've ever had. It's not. It's a part of African culture to find the line, your bloodline, your heritage, your link with you as a people, the greatness of your family. Wow. So what we're gonna experience next week, and I hope people are looking at symbols of life. Everybody, I think if you've seen every demigod or deity was holding a raft of life, because this is exactly what we believe in, living the moment. And when we get back into African spirituality class, you'll understand the sasa, living your moment to the fullest in connection to, and realize, and this is the thing with spirituality and being able to create a communal society. African spirituality, everything was religiously connected. There was nothing in the world that wasn't religiously connected. So the great societies of Egypt that was created because they saw divine or divinity in everything. They saw divinity in everything. So everything that they coming and going was a sacred life's journey. So as we go in now, because we went out of Kush and we said that they see it as everything around them was of God. It's a harmony, the Maya, the flow. Now again, you got ancient mythology in every religion. The question is, and you can tell if a religion actually worked for them if they were able to kingdom build because of it. Wow. If your Marcus Garvey said it, if your leaders are not leading you, your leadership leads you to do anything other than build for yourself, it's not leadership at all. So if your religion is leading you to do something other than build for yourself, it's not religion at all. It's nothing. It's not even sacred mythology. Because according to the foundation of who we are, when we start dealing with the kingdom of Egypt, when we dealt with the kingdom of Cush, and they had the same foundation of mythology that Egypt had, even before Egypt. When you look at how they developed, Egypt was just able to bring to come together as a governing body first, but the greater group of population came from Kermer and migrated up. And then when they got to the Egypt area, and let's go, we and y'all remember the story. When they got to the Egypt area, they were able. Look at how small each Kemet is versus Kush. It took them longer to become a governing body. But after it, so Kush had the people living there on the Nile, the gift of God. That's what they call the Nile. That's why I said you can't study African history if you don't understand. You don't study first the gift of God, which was the Nile, because the Nile and then the resources they found because of the Nile, and what water, water sacred. I can do a whole sermon on water. I can do a man. Don't get me talking about the properties and the attributes of water. Water has memory. Yes, it does. Water has spiritual powers. That's why they call it holy water. You can pray on it, and the properties and the energies of water change. We need to get to African Keep Land Inspirational Sunday. I'm on a roll here. We can't go no more. We almost over. We got to get ready for African spirituality class. This is why you have to look at everything. You got to come and you got to be a part of all of it because we're painting a picture of the blackness of who you are, of your pure identity in God, of what we brought to this earth, or how we exist. And then it gives you a vision. I don't want to cry because I'm in this moment, a vision of where to go. I'm in the process of helping with a group of people build World of Akibaland. Worlds of Akibaland as the catalyst to create the next generation of Pan African leaders. Given it is Africa, this is my Black History moment, given to us by Jemoja Baby Ajiman, and said, this is the concept of which I bless you with. Where can you take it? And all my life in my church program, I've been working with the youth since my early 20s. Now, we sat down and said, Bloom, it's time to shift gears in this new technology. Why? Because the faith that we have leads us to create society, community, kingdoms. That's African history. If you're studying Black history, understand what they were doing. They were trying to rise as a people. That's it. So what we'll say is, yeah, I can't wait to get more and more into the deeper cultures of African history. And then understanding African spirituality, how it works together. I was telling someone this is a rare moment because I didn't see this coming. I didn't see the moment where we're studying African history, and I can talk about African spirituality and African history on both platforms to get even more deeper. Wow, y'all need to come, yeah, come to African spirituality class, and we're gonna go a little more in depth about the origin of African spirituality. What? I got some gems to drop on you. We thank you for listening. We thank you for coming out to World of Akiba Land, Roots, and Culture. We hope that you got something and understand that how you see yourself and your spiritual makeup will determine how you should determine how you live. Now, in our world, just because we call ourselves Christians, they're not always nice. That means there's something wrong with the way we see the faith. And I can tell you, Pan African Orthodox Christian Church, World of Akiba Land, we see it different than most people. And it's why we know what it means to truly kingdom build. Next week, we're going to start with the old dynasties of Egypt. And we might be there for a while, but that's where we at. And so enjoy your weekend. Sunday is Black Love Sunday. I got something special. We'll advertise that right after the classes are over. Uh, one love. See you in the next class. Wait.